If you think growing fruit trees requires a big backyard, open land, or a full-size garden, this video may give you a completely different perspective. The truth is, many fruit trees can grow successfully in pots, patios, balconies, terraces, and small garden corners, but only when you choose the right variety and understand its basic needs. Container size, sunlight, soil mix, watering routine, drainage, and pruning all play a major role in how well a fruit tree performs in a limited space. But here is the part many gardeners overlook. Not every fruit tree is suitable for pots. Some develop deep or aggressive roots, some demand more space than they appear to need, and some only become practical for containers when grown as dwarf or compact varieties. In this smart gardening video, we are exploring 15 carefully selected fruit trees that can thrive in pots and small spaces with proper care. Each tree on this list has something different to offer, from compact growth habits and beautiful foliage to fragrant flowers, seasonal fruit, and real value for small space gardeners. So make sure you watch until the end, because every tree has its own growing style, care requirements, and container potential. The best choice for your balcony, patio, or small garden might be one you have not considered yet. And for more practical, research-based, and interesting gardening videos, make sure to subscribe to Smart Gardening and like this video, so we can keep bringing you useful plant guides that actually help you grow better. Number 1 plant is dwarf lemon tree. A dwarf lemon tree is one of the best fruit trees to start with if you're growing in a pot, because it gives a small space the feeling of a real orchard without needing a large yard. Lemons have been grown around Mediterranean homes for centuries, not only for fruit, but also for fragrance, shade, and the bright color they bring to courtyards and patios. What makes a dwarf lemon especially valuable for container gardening is its manageable size. Varieties like Meyer lemon stay more compact than standard citrus trees, and with regular pruning, they can fit beautifully on a sunny balcony, porch, or small garden corner. But this tree is not a decoration you can forget about. It needs at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight, a pot with strong drainage, and a loose citrus-friendly soil mix that does not stay soggy. Watering should be steady but careful. Let the top inch or two of soil dry before watering again, because citrus roots dislike sitting in wet soil. In cooler climates, the pot can be moved indoors near a bright window during winter. The real charm of a dwarf lemon tree is a combination of glossy leaves, white fragrant blossoms, and fruit slowly changing from green to yellow. It teaches patience, but it rewards consistent care. And the next tree on this list brings a completely different flavor to small space gardening. Number 2 plant is dwarf fig tree. A dwarf fig tree has a quiet, old-world beauty that makes it feel much larger than its actual size. For thousands of years, figs have been grown around homes, courtyards, and warm stone walls because they're productive, attractive, and surprisingly adaptable when their roots are contained. For small space gardeners, that is what makes figs so interesting. A compact variety like Little Miss Figgy, Petite Negra, or a well-pruned Chicago Hardy can grow in a large container and still produce real fruit. The leaves are broad, textured, and tropical looking. So even before the fruit appears, the tree adds structure and shade to a patio or balcony. A dwarf fig needs a container that is usually at least 15 to 20 gallons, with excellent drainage. It grows best in full sun, ideally 6 to 8 hours a day, and prefers a loose, fertile soil mix that holds some moisture without becoming heavy. Water deeply when the top layer of soil begins to dry, especially during hot weather, because container figs can dry out faster than trees planted in the ground. Pruning is part of the secret. By trimming during dormancy, you can keep the tree compact, encourage fresh growth, and make harvesting easier. In colder regions, the pot can be moved to a protected place during winter. The reward is not just the fruit. It is a slow change from tiny green figs to soft, sweet harvests that make a small garden feel deeply personal. And the next fruit tree brings a brighter, more tropical feeling to container growing. Number 3 plant is Calamondin orange tree. The Calamondin orange tree is a kind of fruit tree that earns its place even before you pick a single fruit. It stays compact, looks polished in a container, and often carries flowers and fruit at the same time, something that makes a small patio feel surprisingly alive. Calamondin, sometimes called calamansi, is especially loved in Southeast Asian kitchens, where its small tart fruit is used for drinks, marinades, sauces, and bright citrus flavor. In some cultures, small citrus trees are also seen as symbols of good fortune or fresh energy around the home. But in practical gardening terms, their real value comes from fragrance, beauty, and steady usefulness in a limited space. This tree performs best in a pot with excellent drainage and a citrus-friendly soil mix. A young tree can begin in a medium container, but as it matures, a 10 to 15-gallon pot gives the roots more stability. Like most citrus, Calamondin wants strong light, ideally 6 or more hours of direct sun. On a balcony, place it where morning or afternoon sun reaches the leaves clearly. Water when the top layer of soil feels dry, but never let the roots sit in soggy soil. Indoors, it needs the brightest window you have, and occasional rotation helps the tree grow evenly. What makes Calamondin special is its generosity. Glossy leaves, tiny white blossoms, and bright orange fruit that looks almost decorative. And the next tree brings a sweeter, more classic orchard feeling into container gardening. Number 4 plant is dwarf apple tree. A dwarf apple tree is one of those container fruit trees that surprises people, because apples are often imagined as big orchard trees spreading across open land. But with the right rootstock, the apple tree becomes much more adaptable. Small enough for patios, large balconies, and compact backyard corners. Apples have a long history in home gardens, especially in cooler regions where families grew them for fresh eating, baking, and winter storage. In a small space garden, a dwarf apple brings that same orchard feeling into a much more manageable form. The key is choosing a true dwarf or columnar variety, because standard apple trees are not practical for containers. A dwarf apple usually needs a large pot, around 15 to 25 gallons, with strong drainage and a rich, well-aerated soil mix. It performs best in full sun, ideally 6 to 8 hours a day. Watering should be deep but not constant. The soil should stay lightly moist during active growth, without becoming waterlogged. One detail many beginners miss is pollination. Some apple trees need a second compatible apple nearby to produce good fruit, while few varieties are self-fertile. So before buying one, check the variety carefully. Light pruning in late winter helps maintain shape, improves airflow, and keeps the tree productive in a tight space. The beauty of a dwarf apple is seasonal. Spring blossoms, summer leaves, and fruit slowly coloring on the branches. And the next tree brings a softer, warmer climate flavor to container gardening. Number 5 plant is dwarf peach tree. A dwarf peach tree brings a different kind of charm to container gardening. It is not just a fruit that makes it special. It is a whole seasonal story. Bare branches in winter, soft pink blossoms in spring, leafy growth in summer, and finally, the warm color of ripening peaches. Peaches have been grown for thousands of years, and in some traditions, especially in parts of East Asia, peach blossoms have been connected with renewal and long life. In a gardening sense, that symbolism feels easy to understand, because a peach tree changes dramatically through the year and makes even a small space feel connected to the seasons. For pots, the best choice is a true dwarf or genetic dwarf peach variety, because standard peach trees grow too large for long-term container life. A container around 15 to 25 gallons gives the roots enough room, and the pot must have excellent drainage. Peach trees love full sun, so choose the brightest patio, balcony, or courtyard spot you have, ideally 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. The soil should be fertile, loose, and well-draining. Water deeply when the upper soil begins to dry, but avoid constantly wet roots. In many climates, peaches also need winter chill hours to set fruit properly, so variety selection matters. Pruning after dormancy helps control size, improves airflow, and allows sunlight to reach developing fruit. A dwarf peach tree rewards patient care with blossoms that feel almost ornamental in fruit that makes a container feel worth every inch of space. The next tree on our list is smaller, citrusy, and surprisingly productive in the right pot. Number 6 plant is dwarf kumquat tree. A dwarf kumquat tree is a small space gardener's citrus gem because it stays compact, looks elegant in a container, and produces fruit that feels almost ornamental before you even taste it. Unlike larger citrus trees, kumquats naturally have a more restrained growth habit, which makes them especially useful for patios, balconies, courtyards, and sunny entryways. What makes kumquats interesting is their fruit. Instead of peeling them like oranges, kumquats are often eaten whole because the thin skin is sweet while the inside is tart. That contrast gives them a bright, refreshing flavor, and makes the tree feel more unique than many common container fruits. In some homes, small citrus trees are also associated with welcome, freshness, and abundance, but from a practical gardening point of view, their strongest value is beauty, fragrance, and reliable container performance. A dwarf kumquat usually does well in a 10 to 15 gallon pot, as long as the container has excellent drainage. It prefers a loose citrus potting mix, steady moisture, and full sun, ideally 6 or more hours of direct light each day, if you live in a colder climate. This is one of those trees that can be moved indoors during winter, but it will still need the brightest window available. Water only when the top layer of soil begins to dry, because citrus roots need oxygen as much as moisture. With its glossy leaves, fragrant white flowers, and clusters of golden orange fruit, a kumquat tree can make a small space feel carefully cultivated. And the next tree brings a tropical look that many gardeners do not expect to work so well in containers. Number 7 plant is dwarf banana tree. A dwarf banana tree brings an instant tropical feeling to a small garden, but it is important to understand what this plant really is. Botanically, bananas are not woody trees. They grow from a thick underground structure and form a tall, leafy pseudostem. Still, in container gardening, dwarf bananas are often treated like small fruit trees because of their height, structure, and dramatic presence. For patios, balconies, and compact spaces, varieties like dwarf Cavendish or truly tiny are much more practical than full-size bananas, even when they do not fruit right away. Their broad green leaves can transform a plain corner into a lush garden feature. In warm climates with enough sun, heat, and feeding, some dwarf bananas can produce fruit in containers, but they need patience and consistent care. A dwarf banana does best in a large pot, usually 15 to 25 gallons, with rich, well-draining soil. It likes warmth, humidity, and bright light. Full sun is ideal in many areas, but in very hot climates, light afternoon shade can protect the leaves from scorching. Watering should be regular because bananas have large leaves and lose moisture quickly, but the pot still needs drainage, so the roots do not stay waterlogged. These plants are also heavy feeders, so during the growing season, they respond well to balanced fertilizer and organic matter. In cooler regions, they may need winter protection indoors or in a sheltered spot. The beauty of a dwarf banana is its bold foliage and tropical energy in a limited space. And the next plant brings a sweeter, more delicate fruiting style that many container gardeners find surprisingly rewarding. Number 8 plant is dwarf mulberry tree. A dwarf mulberry tree is one of the most underrated choices for container fruit growing, especially if you want something productive, fast-growing, and a little different from a usual citrus or apple tree. Mulberries have been valued for centuries across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, not only for their sweet berries, but also for their connection to silk production, because silkworms famously feed on mulberry leaves. In a small garden, the dwarf mulberry feels generous without needing much drama. Varieties like dwarf everbearing or compact black mulberry types can grow well in large pots, and with pruning, they can stay manageable on patios, terraces, and sunny backyard corners. The fruit is delicate, dark, and sweet when fully ripe, but does not store like supermarket fruit, which is exactly why growing at home feels special. A dwarf mulberry usually needs a container of at least 15 to 25 gallons, with strong drainage and a fertile, well-draining soil mix. It grows best in full sun, although it can tolerate a little partial shade. Water deeply when the top layer of soil begins to dry, especially during hot weather or fruiting season. Pruning is important because mulberries can grow quickly. Light trimming after fruiting or during dormancy helps control height, encourage branching, and keep harvest within reach. The real beauty of this tree is its quiet productivity. One day the branches look simple, and then suddenly, small berries begin turning from red to deep purple-black. And the next plant brings ornamental flowers and jewel-colored fruit into the container garden. Number 9 plant is dwarf pomegranate tree. A dwarf pomegranate tree brings a strong architectural beauty to container gardening. It does not look delicate or temporary. Even in a pot, it has that ancient, sun-loving character that makes a small patio feel warmer and more established. Pomegranates have been grown for thousands of years around the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and South Asia. In many cultures, the fruit has been associated with abundance, fertility, and celebration, but in a practical garden, its value is easier to see. Glossy leaves, bright orange-red flowers, drought tolerance once established, and fruit that feels almost jewel-like when it ripens. For small spaces, choose a true dwarf variety such as Nana or another compact pomegranate type. These are much more manageable than standard trees and can grow well in a large container, usually around 10 to 20 gallons. The pot must drain well because pomegranates prefer slightly dry conditions over constantly wet soil. This tree loves heat and full sun. Give it at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight and use a loose, well-draining soil mix. Water deeply. Then allow the upper soil to dry before watering again. Too much water can lead to weak growth and fewer flowers. Light pruning helps shape the tree, improve airflow, and keep it compact. Even when fruit production is modest, the flowers alone make this tree worth growing. And the next plant brings a softer, tropical sweetness that can surprise many container gardeners. Number 10 plant is dwarf cherry tree. A dwarf cherry tree is one of the most beautiful fruit trees you can grow in a container because it brings 2 seasons of interest before the fruit even reaches the table. First come the spring blossoms, soft and delicate against bare branches. Then, if the tree is well cared for, the small green fruits begin to swell and slowly deepen into shades of red. Cherries are often associated with classic orchards and cool spring landscapes, but dwarf and patio varieties make them more realistic for smaller gardens. The important detail is variety selection. Look for a true dwarf cherry on dwarfing rootstock or compact varieties, such as compact Stella, Juliet, or other patio-suitable types. Some cherries are self-fertile, while others need a compatible cherry nearby for pollination. So this is one plant where reading the label really matters. A container cherry usually needs a large pot, around 15 to 25 gallons, with excellent drainage and a rich, well-aerated soil mix. It prefers full sun, ideally 6 to 8 hours daily, and does best where air can move gently around the branches. Water deeply when the upper soil begins to dry, especially while fruit is forming, but avoid soggy soil around the roots. Pruning should be light and thoughtful. The goal is to keep the canopy open, shaped, and easy to harvest. In many areas, birds may notice ripening cherries before you do, so netting can be useful. A dwarf cherry tree asks for patience, but its blossoms and fruit can make a small space feel like a carefully tended orchard. The next tree is even more forgiving, and it brings rich flavor with surprisingly simple care. Number 11 plant is dwarf plum tree. A dwarf plum tree has a quiet way of earning attention. It does not need huge leaves or a tropical shape to stand out. Instead, it brings elegance through its spring blossoms, smooth branches, and fruit that slowly deepens into purple, red, yellow, or blue tones depending on the variety. Plums have a long history in home orchards across Europe and Asia. In some East Asian traditions, plum blossoms are admired as symbols of endurance because they often bloom while the air is still cool. For gardeners, that meaning feels connected to the tree's real seasonal rhythm. It wakes up early, flowers beautifully, and then asks for steady care before fruit develops. For containers, choose a dwarf or patio plum variety on dwarfing rootstock. Standard plum trees can become too large, but compact selections can work well in a 15 to 25 gallon pot with excellent drainage. Full sun is important, ideally 6 to 8 hours daily, because good light supports flowering, fruit color, and stronger growth. The soil should be fertile, loose, and well-draining. Water deeply when the top layer begins to dry, especially while fruit is swelling, but avoid keeping the container constantly wet. Some plum varieties are self-fertile, while others need a compatible plum nearby. So pollination is worth checking before planting. Light pruning after dormancy helps shape the canopy, reduce crowding, and keep the fruit within reach. A dwarf plum tree rewards observation, from pale blossoms to the soft, dusty skin of ripe fruit. And the next tree brings a fragrant, warm climate character that fits beautifully into small space growing. Number 12 plant is dwarf guava tree. A dwarf guava tree brings a warm, tropical personality into container gardening, but it does it in a surprisingly practical way. Unlike some fruit trees that feel delicate in pots, guava has a naturally sturdy character. Textured leaves, smooth bark, fragrant flowers, and fruit with a scent that can fill a small patio before you even pick it. Guava has deep roots in tropical and subtropical regions, especially across Latin America, South Asia, and parts of the Caribbean, where the fruit is used fresh, juiced, cooked into preserves, or added to desserts. In a small space garden, a dwarf guava gives you that same useful fruiting tradition in a compact form, especially when grown in a large container and pruned regularly. For pots, choose a dwarf or compact guava variety and give a container around 15 to 25 gallons with strong drainage. Guava prefers full sun, ideally 6 to 8 hours a day, and it performs best in warm conditions. The soil should be fertile, loose, and well-draining, with enough organic matter to support steady growth without becoming heavy or soggy. Water deeply when the top layer of soil begins to dry, but avoid overwatering. Once established, guava can be more forgiving than many tropical fruit trees. Light pruning keeps the canopy open, encourages branching, and makes harvesting easier in tight spaces. The best part is the sensory reward: the clean green leaves, delicate white flowers, and fruit that slowly develops with sweet tropical fragrance. And the next tree brings glossy leaves, colorful fruit, and a compact shape that works beautifully in containers. Number 13 plant is dwarf papaya tree. A dwarf papaya tree is one of the most exciting choices for gardeners who want a tropical fruiting plant in a small space. It has a completely different look from apples, figs, or citrus. The trunk is upright, the leaves spread like large green umbrellas, and the fruit develops close to the stem in a way that feels almost sculptural. Technically, papaya is not a woody tree in the traditional orchard sense. It is a fast-growing tropical plant with a soft trunk, but in container gardening, it is often treated like a small fruit tree because of its height, shape, and fruiting habit. In tropical and subtropical regions, papaya has long been valued for fresh eating, juices, salads, and home garden production. For pots, choose a dwarf or container-friendly papaya variety because standard papayas can quickly become too tall. A container around 15 to 25 gallons gives the roots better support, and drainage is very important. Papaya dislikes cold, wet soil, so the potting mix should be loose, fertile, and fast-draining. This plant needs warmth and strong sunlight. Give it at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, and place in the warmest protected spot you have. Water consistently, but let excess moisture drain away quickly. In cooler climates, papaya is challenging outdoors, but it can still be grown seasonally or in a greenhouse-like setup. The beauty of dwarf papaya is its speed and tropical presence. It can turn a plain, sunny corner into something lush and productive. And the next tree brings a classic fruit with a rich flavor that many gardeners are surprised to see growing in pots. Number 14 plant is dwarf avocado tree. A dwarf avocado tree has a special appeal because it brings one of the most recognizable fruits into a space where people rarely expect it to grow: a patio, a terrace, or even a bright protected courtyard. Avocados are often imagined as large tropical trees, and that is true for standard varieties. But compact types, especially grafted dwarf avocados, can be trained and maintained in containers with the right care. Avocados have a long history in Central America, where they were valued as a rich, nourishing fruit long before they became popular in modern kitchens. In a small space garden, the attraction is not just the fruit. The tree itself has glossy leaves, a clean, upright shape, and a calm, evergreen presence that makes a container garden feel more mature. For pots, choose a dwarf or semi-dwarf grafted avocado variety rather than starting from a seed if your goal is fruit. A seed-grown avocado can be beautiful, but it may take many years to fruit, and the results are unpredictable. A large container, usually 20 to 30 gallons, gives the roots better stability. The soil should be loose, slightly acidic, and very well draining, because avocado roots are sensitive to soggy conditions. Give the tree bright light and as much sun as possible, ideally 6 or more hours daily. Water deeply, then let the upper soil dry slightly before watering again. In cooler regions, protect it from frost and cold wind. A dwarf avocado asks for patience, but adds elegant shade and real long-term value to a small fruit garden. And the final tree on our list brings a fragrant tropical sweetness that can make a container garden feel surprisingly luxurious. Number 15 plant is dwarf mango tree. A dwarf mango tree feels like the grand finale of a small space fruit garden because it brings warmth, fragrance, glossy foliage, and one of the world's most beloved tropical fruits into a container. Mango trees are usually imagined as large trees spreading across warm landscapes, but dwarf and compact grafted varieties make container growing much more realistic for patios, terraces, and sunny courtyards. Mango has a long cultural history across South Asia, Southeast Asia, and other tropical regions, where the fruit is valued for fresh eating, desserts, juices, and seasonal family traditions. In some cultures, mango leaves and fruit are also connected with hospitality and abundance. But for gardeners, the practical appeal is simple. A healthy mango tree can become both an ornamental feature and a productive container plant when its needs are respected. For pots, choose a grafted dwarf mango variety rather than starting from seed. Seed-grown mangoes can become large, unpredictable, and may take many years to fruit. A dwarf mango usually needs a large container, around 20 to 30 gallons, with excellent drainage and a loose, slightly acidic, well-aerated soil mix. This tree loves heat and strong sunlight. Give it at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sun, and protect it from frost, cold wind, and constantly wet soil. Water deeply, then allow the upper layer of soil to dry slightly before watering again. Light pruning after growth flushes helps control height and encourages a stronger shape. A dwarf mango is not the easiest tree on this list, but in the right warm, sunny space, it can become the most rewarding. And with that, our small space fruit tree list is complete.